Lena Harper had always been a fighter. Even as a child, she had been the one to stand up for herself, to protect those she loved, and to push through challenges that others couldn't even imagine. But nothing in her life had prepared her for what she was about to face. It was late on a chilly fall afternoon when everything changed. She was walking home from school, the scent of autumn leaves thick in the air. The path was quiet, lined with tall oak trees whose leaves had just begun to turn orange and gold. She smiled as the wind picked up, twirling a few leaves in the air before they danced across the road, finally landing at her feet. It was the perfect afternoon until it wasn't. Lena felt the change before she even saw it. A shadow crossed her path, and she froze. Something felt off, like the very air around her had shifted. She turned to look behind her, but the road was empty. Then, without warning, she felt a sharp tug on the back of her jacket, and before she could scream, a rough hand clamped over her mouth. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to struggle, but whoever was holding her was far too strong. She kicked and punched, but it was no use. Darkness overtook her as she was dragged into the trees. The last thing Lena remembered was the cold, harsh grip tightening, and then everything went black. 6 years had passed since that day. Lena's family, devastated by her disappearance, had never stopped searching. Her mother, a kind-hearted woman who always believed in miracles, had plastered the town with missing person posters. Her father had hired private investigators, scoured the woods where she had vanished, and even turned to local news channels for help. But no one had seen Lena since that afternoon. Her name was never far from the tongues of the townspeople. The mystery of Lena Harper's disappearance became one of those cases that lingered in the background, haunting everyone who remembered her. Some said she had run away. Others whispered that something terrible had happened. But one could imagine what it really was. Lena Harper had been buried alive. It started with a strange sensation in the pit of her stomach. Lena was lying in a confined space, cold earth pressing against her. She could hear the faintest sounds, a drip of water here, a scrape of dirt there. But it wasn't the earth or the darkness that had kept her alive for all this time. It was the memory of her family, the love of her friends, and the burning determination that kept her going. They had believed she was gone, but Lena knew she couldn't die. Not like this. She wasn't going to let the darkness swallow her. Fingers scraped the dirt, her nails torn and bloodied. She had no idea how long she had been in this suffocating grave, but her body was weak, her muscles aching, and her throat dry from thirst. The air around her was stale, filled with the smell of damp earth and decay. But through it all, she clung to one thought: she had to escape. She hadn't seen her captor since that day she had been dragged into the woods. The man who had taken her seemed to be watching her from a distance, but he never came close enough to finish what he had started. And over the years, Lena had grown used to the silence, to the dark, to the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a box beneath the ground. But no more. Lena clenched her fists, her nails dug into the hard soil as she began to pound against the walls of her grave. She screamed, her voice muffled by the layers of earth above her. She had to get out. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't give up. Her mind raced back to the things she had learned in her survival class when she was younger. How to stay calm in emergencies, how to conserve energy, how to find a way to fight back even when it seemed impossible. With one final desperate push, Lena's hand broke through the surface of the dirt. The sound was faint at first, but it was enough. A crack in the coffin. A way out. Lena gasped for air, the cold, damp air hitting her lungs. She hadn't realized how much she had needed it until now. Her body was screaming for oxygen, her heart pounding in her chest. She shoved her hand deeper, digging with renewed energy. Minutes passed, or was it hours? Lena couldn't tell. She felt time slipping away, like sand through her fingers. Then, suddenly, the earth gave way. Lena gasped in shock as her entire body was thrust upward. Her eyes squeezed shut, her heart racing as she felt herself break through the surface. Finally free from the suffocating weight of the dirt. She didn't know how, but somehow she had managed to push herself up and out of her grave. She collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, her body trembling with exhaustion. But she was alive. She was free, and that's all that mattered. For the first time in years, Lena dared to look around. The landscape was eerily familiar. She had been buried in the woods behind her old house, the place where she had been taken all those years ago. The trees stood tall around her, their leaves whispering in the wind. Her old neighborhood was just beyond the tree line. She could almost see the houses in the distance, but something was wrong. The world looked different. There was no one around, no sound of cars, no voices. It was as if the town had been abandoned. Lena stumbled to her feet, her legs shaking beneath her. She could barely stand, but her instincts told her to move, to run. She didn't know where she was going, but the idea of being caught again was unbearable. She took a shaky step forward, then another. The familiar path that once led to her home was now foreign and dark. As she made her way through the woods, Lena could feel the weight of the years pressing down on her. 6 years of captivity, 6 years of darkness, and now 6 years of questions. Where was everyone? Had they moved? Had they forgotten about her? Or was something much worse happening? The town looked deserted. It was as though the entire world had shifted while she had been trapped underground. Lena's breath quickened as a chill swept through her body. Her heart pounded with confusion and fear. Lena had to know what had happened. She had to find answers. It didn't take long for Lena to reach the edge of the woods. Her feet, sore and bruised from her long ordeal, dragged across the gravel road. She stopped for a moment, catching her breath and glancing around. The streetlights flickered weakly in the distance, casting eerie shadows over the empty streets. No cars, no people. Everything was still. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold. A missing persons poster. It was on a nearby telephone pole, yellowed with age, torn at the edges. Her heart stopped as she read the words, her fingers trembling as she reached out to touch the familiar image of herself. The poster read, "Missing, Lena Harper. Last seen October 16, 2015. Please contact the local authorities if you have any information." Lena felt a wave of nausea wash over her. 6 years. 6 years had passed, and yet the search for her was still active. Her face stared back at her from the faded paper, but there was no sign of hope in the eyes of the people who had once loved her. It was like she had never existed. The road stretched before her, empty and quiet. Lena's thoughts raced as she tried to make sense of the nightmare she had just escaped. Her body was bruised, weak, and drained of all energy, but her mind was sharp, pushing her forward with one single thought. She had to find out what happened. What had happened to her town? What had happened to her life? Lena took a deep breath and looked down the road. There was only one place to go now, one place where the answers might be waiting, her home. Lena's heart raced as she walked down the empty road. The familiar sights of her neighborhood should have felt like a comfort, but instead they filled her with a sense of dread. She couldn't understand it. Where was everyone? Her parents? Her friends? Had they really moved on, or was something more sinister at play? As she approached the first few houses, she noticed that many of them looked strangely abandoned. The lawns were overgrown, the windows dusty, and the mailboxes full. The houses themselves seemed to have aged beyond their years, as if they had been left in a hurry. She passed by her old friend, Sarah's house, once a bright yellow with white shutters, now dull and worn, the paint peeling away. Lena stopped for a moment, her hand lingering on the old iron fence that separated the yard from the street. A faint memory flashed in her mind, Sarah laughing, the two of them running down the sidewalk together, their school bags bouncing on their shoulders. But that was before she was taken, before the grave. Her throat tightened. Sarah's house looked deserted. No lights flickered behind the windows, no sign of movement. There was no one left. Lena turned away, forcing herself to keep moving. She couldn't let herself fall apart, not now. She needed answers. Just as she reached the corner of her street, she heard a faint sound. At first, she thought it was the wind, but then it came again, a door creaking open. Lena froze. A shadow appeared at the end of the street, the outline of a figure silhouetted against the dimming sky. Her heart skipped a beat. Who could it be? There had been no one in sight for miles, and now, here was someone emerging from the dark. The figure was tall, slender, and cloaked in a heavy jacket that seemed to blend into the shadows. As they walked closer, Lena's breath hitched. They weren't moving like a normal person. It was almost as if they were gliding, not walking. When they came into full view, Lena gasped. The person's face was covered by a dark mask, like the ones worn by bandits in old Western films. The eyes, however, were strikingly clear, shining with an unnatural brightness that made Lena's blood run cold. "Who are you?" Lena called out, her voice shaking, yet determined. The figure stopped a few feet from her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, the person's voice came. soft but firm, as if it carried some weight from beyond the grave. "I'm not the one you should be asking, but if you want answers, come with me." Lena hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to run. She didn't know if this person could be trusted or if they were another part of the nightmare she had just escaped. But something about them, something in their eyes, made Lena feel like they might be her only hope. "I'm not going anywhere with you unless you tell me who you are," Lena replied, her voice a little steadier now. The figure tilted their head, almost as if they were amused by her answer. "I'm someone who knows the truth about what happened to you, and I know what's happening now." Lena's heart pounded harder in her chest. "The truth? What do you mean? What's happening?" The person sighed, a sound that seemed to echo in the empty street. "You were never meant to escape. You were never meant to know, but now it's too late." They stepped forward, the eerie mask hiding their expression, but Lena could feel the intensity of their gaze. "Come with me, and I'll show you the answers. You'll find what you're looking for, but only if you're ready." Lena swallowed, torn between fear and the desire for the truth. She wanted to run, to find her parents, to understand what had happened to her and her town. But part of her deep down knew that running wouldn't help her. The truth was out there, and it was waiting for her. She took a deep breath. "All right, I'll follow you." Without a word, the masked figure turned and started walking toward the abandoned neighborhood. Lena followed closely behind, her legs still weak from her ordeal in the grave. Every step felt like a battle, but the fire inside her burned brighter than her fear. They passed house after house, desolate, untouched for years. Lena's mind raced. It didn't make sense. She had been buried alive, but now she was standing here, walking down her old street, as if time had stood still for everyone else except her. The masked figure led her to a house at the end of the block. It was different from the others. No boarded-up windows, no neglected yard. The house was pristine, almost as if someone still lived there. The figure stopped in front of the front door and turned to Lena. "We're here." Lena's eyes scanned the house, confused. "This house looks normal. Who lives here?" "You'll understand soon enough," the figure said, their voice calm, almost soothing. "But first, you need to meet someone." The door creaked open, and before Lena could ask another question, a woman appeared in the doorway. She was older than Lena remembered, with dark circles under her eyes. But the moment Lena saw her, she felt a strange sense of familiarity. The woman's eyes widened in shock. "Lena, is it really you?" Lena's breath caught in her throat. Who are you?" I'm your mother's sister, your aunt, Caroline." Lena blinked, trying to piece together the sudden onslaught of emotions. Her mother's sister. She didn't even know she had an aunt. Her father had never mentioned her, and Lena couldn't remember ever hearing anyone talk about her. Caroline stepped forward, her face filled with both joy and sorrow. "I thought I'd never see you again. I thought you were gone forever." Lena shook her head, still in shock. "What happened to everyone? Where's my mum, my dad? Where is everybody?" Caroline's expression darkened. She stepped back into the house, gesturing for Lena to follow. "Come inside, I'll tell you everything. But you need to know, Lena, things are not what they seem. Not anymore." Lena followed her into the house, her heart beating faster. She could feel the weight of the past 6 years bearing down on her with every step. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and coffee, an odd comfort that made Lena's throat tighten with longing for a life she thought was lost forever. Once inside, Caroline closed the door behind them and led Lena to a small living room. Space was warm, with a soft glow from a few lamps, and everything appeared strangely ordinary. But there was a tension in the air, a heaviness that Lena couldn't shake. "Sit down," Caroline said, motioning to the couch. "I need to explain everything." Lena sat, her mind spinning with questions. What's going on? Why is the town abandoned? Why did I come back to this place? Caroline sat across from her, wringing her hands in her lap. "Lena, everything you think you know about your life, about your disappearance, about your family has been a lie." Lena's eyes widened. "A lie?" Caroline nodded slowly. "The truth is, your parents were involved in something dangerous. And when you were taken that day, it wasn't just random. You were part of something bigger, something that's been brewing for years." Lena shook her head, confusion and disbelief clouding her thoughts. "What do you mean? I don't understand." "The town," Caroline's voice faltered. "The town is part of an experiment, and you were the key." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "The key to what? Caroline's eyes flicked nervously to the door, as if she feared someone might be listening. The key to changing everything, the key to rewriting the past, and now, they know you're alive. Lena felt the ground beneath her feet begin to shift. She had come here seeking answers, but this was more than she could have ever imagined. Before Lena could ask another question, Caroline's face went as pale as the walls surrounding the air in the room turned icy. She stood frozen for Caroline's face, her eyes wide with fear, before rushing to the window beside the door. Lena could see her aunt's hands trembling as she peered through the blinds, her breath shallow. "They know we're here," Caroline whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's too soon. I wasn't expecting them this quickly." Lena's pulse quickened, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. Who were these people, and why did they want her? She glanced at the door again, hearing the knock once more, this time louder, more insistent. The doorframe rattled under the force of the knock. The sound seemed to vibrate through her chest, and she instinctively stepped back, her body tensing. The fear was palpable in the room, now thick and heavy, suffocating everything it touched. Caroline's face twisted in desperation. She quickly glanced over at Lena, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and sorrow. "Listen to me, Lena, you have to leave now." Lena shook her head, confused and scared. "What's happening? Who are they?" Caroline grabbed Lena's arm, her grip tight. "They're not human. They never were. You're in danger, and they're coming for you." Lena's heart skipped a beat as the truth finally started to sink in. She had felt it since the moment she left the grave. This wasn't just about a missing girl, it was about something far darker, something that had been waiting for her to return. But who or what were these people? The door rattled again, the wood groaning under the pressure. Caroline looked over at Lena one last time, her eyes pleading. "Go, you don't have much time. Head down the back way to the woods. I'll hold them off for as long as I can." Lena wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she could barely get the words out. Fear clamped her chest like a vice. She wasn't ready. She couldn't leave her only living family member to face whatever was coming. Caroline pushed her toward the back door. "Now, Lena, you have to go." Before Lena could protest further, Caroline threw open the door, revealing a dark hallway beyond. It was the only way out. Lena hesitated only for a moment before running toward it, her heart hammering against her ribs. The moment she stepped into the hallway, she heard the unmistakable sound of boots on the porch outside. The knock stopped instead. There was a strange, soft hum, like an electrical current running through the air. The sound sent a chill crawling up Lena's spine, and she instinctively ran faster. She sprinted through the narrow hallway, her legs barely keeping up with the panic surging through her body. She reached the back door, yanked it open, and was met with the cool night air. But as she stepped outside, she froze. The woods, the very same woods she had wandered through after escaping the grave, loomed before her, their trees stretching like dark, twisted fingers into the night sky. The path seemed to whisper in the wind, as though beckoning her to follow it. Lena glanced back at the house, where Caroline had disappeared. She couldn't see her aunt, but she could feel the presence of something, or someone, moving inside. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the walls of the house. Lena didn't have time to wait. Her heart told her she had to keep running, keep moving, or they would catch her. She stepped into the woods, each step sinking deeper into the night. The trees felt alive, most like they were watching her. The path was narrow, winding around massive roots that seemed to grow like snakes from the ground. The rustling leaves in the distance made her feel like she was being followed. And then, just as she was trying to shake off the unease, a voice echoed through the trees. Lena, it was her name, whispered softly in the breeze, and it sent a jolt of terror through her. It didn't sound like Caroline. It was colder, more distorted, like it came from somewhere deep inside the earth itself. Lena stopped in her tracks. Her breath was coming in ragged bursts, and she felt as if the very woods were closing in around her. She turned, eyes scanning the shadows. But there was nothing but darkness. She spun back to the path, ready to run again. But something caught her. A flash of movement, just a few feet ahead. She froze. A figure stepped out from the trees. It was tall and lean, cloaked in a long flowing robe. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, and in the dim light, all Lena could make out were its long bony hands. The figure's presence felt ancient, as if it had been standing there for centuries. Waiting. Lena stepped backward, her heart hammering louder than ever. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" The figure's voice was deep, resonating through the trees like an echo. The key has returned. Lena's stomach dropped. The key? What do you mean? What do you want from me? The figure took a slow step toward her, its presence suffocating. You are the key, Lena Harper. The final piece. They will come for you soon, but it doesn't matter. There is no escaping it. Her mind raced. Who will come for me? The Covenant, the figure whispered, its voice like a soft wind through the leaves. They have been waiting for you, watching you. You are the one who will unlock the truth, but you are also the one who will destroy everything. Lena's chest tightened. Destroy everything. Her brain was spinning, trying to piece together what the figure had just said. The Covenant. What was that, and how was she connected to it? The answers were just out of reach. Like a puzzle she couldn't quite finish. But before she could ask another question, the figure lifted a hand, and a low, unnatural sound filled the air, a hum that vibrated through her body. It was like an electric charge, buzzing through the very air around her. Run, the figure said, its voice suddenly turning soft, almost sympathetic. You don't have much time. Lena didn't need to be told twice. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She turned and sprinted down the path, not daring to look back. As she ran, the trees seemed to stretch farther apart, the path becoming clearer, but at the same time, more dangerous. The air grew colder with each step, and every noise made her stop, holding her breath, straining to hear if she was being followed. Suddenly, she heard a distant shout, then another, and another. The sound was getting closer. The voices, they were human. No, not human. Lena's heart skipped a beat. She knew they were close now. She could feel them, like shadows just behind her, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. But the path ahead was narrowing, the trees closing in, and the darkness felt like it was swallowing her whole. Every breath she took felt heavier than the last. Every movement was harder, slower, and then she heard its footsteps behind her, closing in. Lena looked over her shoulder just as a figure lunged at her. Dare look back fully, but she could hear the relentless footsteps, the sound of someone or something gaining on her. I can't outrun them, she thought desperately. I have to do something. In one swift movement, she reached into her jacket pocket, where she had hidden the only thing she thought could save her, the small, polished stone Caroline had given her earlier. It had been given to her with little explanation, only a warning that it could protect her, though Caroline's exact words had been cryptic. Use it when the time comes. Well, the time had come. Lena didn't know what it would do, but in that moment of pure panic, she had no other choice. Without hesitation, she held the stone in both hands and squeezed tightly. Nothing happened at first. Then the world shifted. The air around her seemed to hum with energy, a strange force pulling at her from all directions. The footsteps behind her faltered, the figure's presence retreating. Lena's body was filled with a sudden rush of warmth, as if the stone were channeling something deep within her. Then a voice spoke in her head, familiar, like a whisper from her past. Lena, don't be afraid. Her mother's voice. She turned, her body moving of its own accord, and there, standing before her, was her mother, lithe, her face warm and radiant, as if no time had passed at all. But this wasn't just her mother, it was her mother's spirit, an echo of who she had been, reaching out from the past. Mum, Lena whispered, hardly daring to believe it. I've been watching you, her mother said softly. You are the key. You've always been. Tears welled in Lena's eyes. What is this? What's happening? Why didn't you come for me? Her mother's form looked down, as if in sorrow. I couldn't, Lena. We were part of something much bigger than we ever realized. The Covenant, your father. He made deals, traded lives, and you, Lena, you were the price. But now you have the chance to break free. Lena felt the weight of those words pressing against her chest. Her mind was spinning, but the love in her mother's voice grounded her. How do I break free? How do I stop this? Her mother smiled faintly. You've already begun. The stone. It's a part of you, a piece of the legacy that binds us all. You must make the choice, Lena. You must choose to end it, or the cycle will continue. Suddenly, the world around them began to distort, the air warping as the dark figure from the woods reappeared, looming like a shadow over them. The hum of its power filled the space, but this time, Lena stood firm. She wasn't running anymore. I don't need to run, Lena said, her voice clear, strong, and unwavering. I'm done being the key to someone else's game. With a final, powerful surge of energy, Lena lifted the stone high above her head. The light that radiated from it pierced the darkness, glowing brighter and brighter, until the figure before her shrieked in agony, its form twisting and distorting as the light consumed it. The ground trembled beneath her, the trees shaking as the very earth seemed to split open. And then, just as suddenly as it had all started, the figure vanished. The oppressive feeling in the air lifted, leaving only silence in its wake. Lena stood there, breathless, her heart racing, but the stone in her hands now a dull grey. The hum of energy had stopped. The nightmare was over. Her mother's form began to fade, her voice echoing softly one last time. "You're free, Lena. You've broken the cycle. The past no longer holds you." As the image of her mother disappeared completely, Lena felt the weight of everything that had happened lift from her shoulders. She was no longer the prisoner of a past that wasn't hers to begin with. She was free. The curse had been broken. Lena collapsed to her knees, exhaustion overtaking her. Her body was battered, her mind spent, but the overwhelming sense of peace that washed over her told her that she had done the right thing. The future was in her hands now, and for the first time in 6 years, she felt hope. The moral of the story: sometimes we find ourselves bound by forces beyond our control that try to dictate our fate, but the greatest power lies within us, the power to choose our path, to break free from the chains of the past, and to forge our own future. Never let the darkness of our past dictate the light of our future. The strength to overcome adversity lies not in escaping it, but in facing it head-on and choosing to change the course of our lives.